So we'll go ahead and just say a prayer too before we start. Gora Gruganya Gana Go Chugalodu Hadam Gora Gura Tamagopya Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachia Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Hemona Goranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namare Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yeshaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema-bhakti-candrika Parama Pumarta Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madhavirapi Gopala Sri Kriyat Kripaya Judi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishayustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathabda Brajabala Bapahimam Vanchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we can recite together this verse from Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur, where he glorifies Narottam Das Thakur. Okay, let's see. Nice to have Brenda Sundari back. So we can recite this verse together from Vishayananda's Narottam Prabharashtakam. Shri Krishna Namamrita Vaishivaktra Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamo Baraya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Tasmai Namo Nama Shri Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He's a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev, the nectarian shower of the holy name of Krishna radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. So nice to see everybody here again, and so nice to see Brenda Sundari. I was going to ask if the picture is more clear now.
Yeah, it is. It looks clear.
The sound is good and everything. My computer was really a nice computer, but when the motherboard got kind of burned out, there's just been years of strange problems. And so now we finally got a new machine, which the devotees here have been really kindly setting me up with. And I'm just using for the first time. So just now I had to check some more settings on it and stuff while we're going along. Anyway, let's get on with our subject. We're reading from Prema-bhakti-candrika. And as we've mentioned before, probably there's different versions of Prema-bhakti-candrika, pretty much basically the same, maybe a couple of words different here and there. But one difference is in the numbering, the way that things are numbered. And we're going along with the system that my godbrother Ishwar Prabhu gives, which this is the second song. And today we'll be on the 20th and 21st verses. How about that? We'll go 2 verses today. So I'm going to put on the board here our, this is a previous verse. Whoops. Trying. Pitagabasa joge, dukamaya bishaya bhage, brajabasa govinda sevan, Krishna katana Krishna nam, satya satya rasadam, brajaloka sange anakshan. So Narottam Das Thakur, in the second song, which is we're going to be finishing today, I think, he is speaking about what our focus is. And previously he offered prayers to Guru and to Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis and the Bhagavatam and things. Those are our foundation. Those are his inspiration. But now he's speaking about some general goals for us. And in this verse in last session, he was speaking about how we shouldn't live in ordinary places, which are just full of dukkha-moya bishai bhage, just full of all kinds of unhappiness, miserable things in the guise of happiness, in the guise of sense pleasure. Rather, we should live in Vrindavan and do Govinda Seva. And to live in Vrindavan means Braja Loka Shange Anukshana, that we should always be associating with the devotees of Vrindavan. And in our situation, we also want to always be associating with devotees of Vrindavan, just like we're here in New Gokul. And all the devotees, they're here associating with each other in the mood of Vrindavan. Maybe some of the devotees might be actual Brijbasis who've descended from the spiritual world, but maybe not all of them. But if the devotees are associating through Krishna Katan, through Krishna Nam, Satya Satya Rasadam, then in truth, this Rasadam, this transcendental abode will manifest for everyone, and we can associate with devotees who are in the mood of Braj. They're following in that mood. So Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, he explains about how we should live in Braj, and if we can't do so, then we should think of Krishna always and try to reside, just like the 6 Goswamis were residing in Ramakeli, where they made one of the first new Vrindavans. Vrindavan, but wasn't Vrindavan. It's in West Bengal. But they made a Radha Kund and Shama Kund and Govardhan Hill and different kunds and things. We visited some time back. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has given this verse, which Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur cites, which I'm not sure where this verse is from, but he says, Brindavane kimatta vanija mandirava karagrehe kimatava kanakasani va indram jaje kimatava narakam bhajame Shri Krishna sevan amrita nasukam kadapi. Kimatava, you may be living in Vrindavan, or you might be living Nija Mandir in your own house. Karagrahe, you might be living in prison. Or Kimatava, you might be sitting on the golden throne of Indra in the heavenly planets, and life is really good for some time. Kimatava, you might be in hell. But wherever we go, we want seva-nistha. Other than that, nasukam kadapi. Other than that seva-nistha, that happiness of doing service, there's no happiness in this material world anywhere. So the verse I wanted to focus on today is here. Sada seva abilas, mani kori bishayas, sarvakaya hoya nirbhaya. Narottam Das Bole, padinu asat bole, paritrana koro mahashoya. He says that mani kori bishayas, that I'm always desiring in my mind. I have this thing, sarva kaya hoya nirbhaya, that in all ways, without any fear, in no bhaya, sada seva abhilas, I have this desire to always render service. And Narottam Das Thakur, speaking in a very humble way about himself, he says, Narottam Das Boli, that Narottam Das Thakur, he's calling out in this way, Parina asat bole, I've fallen into this dark well of material existence. Paritrana koro mahashoy. And he addresses the Lord as Mahashoy. It's interesting because Narottam Das Thakur is often addresses Narottam Das Mahashoy. So he's saying that my Lord, you're the real Mahashoy, or perhaps he's thinking of the fact that sometimes people are addressing him in that way, and he wants to give that title to the Lord. Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur says here in his commentary that the word Vishayas, which Ishwar Prabhu spelled with a B, because some people like to do that with Bengali. I don't like that. It means Vishvas, or firm faith. And by keeping faith in those statements, the above statements that we just do Krishna Katha, we just do Krishna Nam, then everything is going to be satisfied. And by doing that, we'll live without fear. Sarva kaya hoya nirbhaya. We'll be able to live without fear in the residence of Braj, while constantly desiring the service of Sri Krishna. And Vishayananda says that the word Mahashoy means, oh Krishna. He's calling out to him in a very piteous way. So Visvas, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is a famous verse, Shada Sabdi Visvas Koi, Sudurlanish Choi, Krishna Bhakti Koile, Sarva Karma Krito Hoy. That what is Shraddha? Shraddha is Visvas. And it's interesting because Shraddha and Visvas are synonyms of each other. They both mean basically the same thing. But Shraddha means faith, and Visvas means some firm conviction. Or as we may discuss a little later in the session, Srila Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha describes that really there's no big difference between Shraddha and Saranagati, or surrender. Because when someone has a symptom of Shraddha, the symptom of faith is that they surrender. They understand this is what's really good for me. And if we find ourselves having some theoretical kind of understanding of Krishna consciousness, but we're always lamenting, I can't really surrender, Prabhu, then it means that our faith is not so strong, that we're still thinking that somehow I can enjoy some way. There's still some pleasure in this material world. There's still some hope. But as we sometimes comment, we have to become hopeless. Without any hope, there's no hope in the material world. It's a losing proposition. And when we become hopeless, then we can begin to actually develop faith, and we can actually then surrender. So this is the nature of the Brijbasis, as we were hearing from Braj Bilastava in our last session. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has described, let me maybe put this on the board also. This is text number 39, very nice verse. Trinik trichasparam sukam jaladisaram sputamapi swakiyam prem namye bharanikara namra muraripo sukabasam sasvat prataitum alam prodakutakad gatante tandanyan paramiha bhaje madavaganan. he says that I worship Raghunath Das Goswami and Braj Bilastava is just a collection of prayers to the residents of Vrindavan, including the trees, including the plants and the cows, and all the different animals of Braj and all the different devotees of Braj. And such a wonderful, ecstatic exclamation coming from the heart of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. And here he's saying that I'm so much ecstasy. I want to worship those persons of Madhava Gana. Madhava Gana means associates, the associates or the group of Lord Madhava. Iha Bhaji, I want to worship them. He said by associating with them, then when I associate with devotees who are like that, then my own happiness seems very, very insignificant. Trinakritya becomes like a blade of grass. If we can associate with Brajbasis. My Guru Maharaj once gave a lecture, he actually spoke it a few times. He said that the real preachers are Brajbasis. And that's a pretty heavy statement. I remember him saying something to that effect, and some senior devotees would say, well, Maharaj, that means there's no, and he said, no, and he quoted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that the real preachers are Brajbasis. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're persons who have descended from the spiritual world, but they're devotees who are residing in Vrindavan with their hearts. They really have the ability to do Braj Bhav. In the song Jai Radhe Jai Krishna Jai Vrindavan, Leela Purushottam, maybe you can help me, or Jai Gaur. What's the last line? What is he saying?
Brajate prachar, parakiya rasa brajate prachar.
Parakiya bhavi jaha brajeti prachar. Parakiya bhavi jaha brajeti prachar. That this parakiya bhav in Vrindavan, brajeti prachar, when this mood of Vrindavan rises in the heart, then then you become a real preacher, brajeti prachar, and you go and you share Vrindavan with other people. So when we become fortunate enough to get association with those Madhava Ganas, with those associates, that group of Madhava, then our material happiness just seems like such a ridiculous thing. I remember when I was a young man, maybe 16, 17 years old in high school, and it was kind of an avant-garde time, kind of a hippie era at that time. And I had just gotten my own house. It was a well house, probably smaller than most people's bedrooms. It's where they kept the well, but it was a separate building, and it was my own place. And I practically wallpapered the whole place with posters, blacklight posters, and the ceiling posters. And I had all these strange lights and things. And I thought, this is really very, very avant-garde. This is really very thoughtful. This is really artistic. And I invited my stepfather, who was one of my heroes, and great artist and thinker who really helped me become a devotee. And he came out and looked at it, and it's a little hard to explain. He just wasn't impressed. We'll just say it. He didn't say anything, negative, but he just wasn't impressed. In America, we have what we call tinsel. You know, tinsel? When you make a Christmas tree, they have these little like gold and silver strands, which are really cheap, but it looks sparkly and it looks very beautiful. So it became all like tinsel, my big artistic expression thing. So in the same way, if we can associate with devotees who are really advanced devotees, then our own happiness becomes so ridiculous. And what is the quality of these devotees? He says that Murari Posuka Abhasa Sasvat, that constantly they're just thinking about, how can we please Krishna? How can I please Gurudev? And so the happiness they're experiencing with that mood is so intense, they can't even begin to think about anything else. So this is the nature of the Brijbasis. They have so much desire for Krishna's pleasure that they've forgotten everything for themselves. And therefore, Lord Brahma, he prays, Yadharmartha surit priyatama tanaya pranasayas twat krite, that this is the nature of the Brij Basis. They've given everything they have for the pleasure of Krishna. They've given their bodies, their homes, their children, their wealth, their everything. And they don't want anything other than the service and the pleasure of Krishna. So our Goswamis, our acharyas have described that there are 4 different types of happiness in this world. And we should contemplate on it, because whether we confess it or not, we're all looking for happiness. So there's Vishayananda. Vishayananda means the happiness coming from Vishai, or the senses engaged in the sense objects. And even gross materialists in the material world, many of them understand that this is not actually happiness. The pleasure that someone gets by smoking cigarettes, yuck. The pleasure that someone gets by getting drunk. When you drink alcohol, the euphoria, the happiness that you experience comes because you're killing brain cells. The happiness that you get through marriage, through a relationship with a boy and a girl, and it seems like so much happiness in the beginning, but it's not really happiness, it's just some sense enjoyment. And when the sense enjoyment is over, then there's unlimited misery. And therefore Krishna in the Gita says that those persons who are wise, they don't take part in that Vishayananda. Better than Vishayananda, millions and millions of times higher and more ecstatic than Vishayananda is the happiness of Brahmananda. That Brahmananda is the happiness when someone realizes spiritual energy, the energy of the Brahma Jyoti. But that Brahmananda, as compared to Premananda, is nothing. Premananda, the happiness of ecstasy, serving Krishna, is much, much, much greater. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in Kalyana Kalpataru, he gives a Sanskrit, he's written his own Sanskrit verse, which basically summarizes the entire Kalyana Kalpataru. Bande Brindantave Chandram Radi Kakshi Mahotsavam Brahmananda Dikari Purnananda Rasalayam. He says that I do my vandana to that Brindatavi Chandra, that moon of Brindavan, who's Radhikakshi Mahotsavam, who's a festival for the eyes of Shrimati Radharani, and who's Brahmananda Dikari. That Brahmananda, that happiness that the impersonalists are seeking, Dikari, it just becomes ridiculous when you see Krishna. Krishna practically, just the personification of Krishna, his existence, ridicules, it mocks the happiness of Brahmananda. Purnananda Rasalayam, that Sri Krishna, he's full of Ananda, full of bliss. But it wasn't until the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that many people could understand something about Premananda. Although prior to that, there was some little hints given in some of the writings of Vidyapati and Chandidas and Bilvamangala Thakur and others, but it wasn't fully developed until the time of our 6 Goswamis. But our Goswamis describe a 4th type of happiness, which is even greater than Premananda. There's Vishayananda, happiness through service. There's Vishayananda's happiness through the senses. Brahmananda, happiness through Brahman. Premananda, happiness through ecstatic bliss in Krishna consciousness. But higher than all of those is Sevananda, the happiness of rendering service. And this is why Hanuman, there's a famous verse which is included in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, also in Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, and in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. I'll go ahead and share this with you right now. Let's see. This is a prayer which Rupa Goswami doesn't say where it's from. He just says it's an ancient verse, which is an expression of Hanuman. Bhava bandha chide tashyai spriyayami namuktaye bhavan prabhu aham dasa iti yatra vilupyate. He says that even though this liberation, this mukti, it destroys the bhava bandha or the bondage of material existence, still, he says, na spriyami namukti. I don't want that liberation. I don't want any liberation where I lose the sense of being your servant and you're my master. That's the highest thing. And therefore, Hanuman is sometimes described as the embodiment of Dasyaras. And so service is far, far higher than anything else. In the Narada Pancharatra, it said, Dharmartha Kama Moksheshu Necha Mama Kadachana Tutpada Pankajashrado Jivitam Diyatam Mama. That Narad Muni, he's praying that he says that I don't want Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. I don't want religiosity. I don't want artha, wealth. I don't want sense enjoyment, moksha. I don't want liberation. I don't want any of those things if it's going to make me forget my service at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. That's my everything. And sometimes we comment in this regard. Maybe some of you have heard me say something about it, so don't mind if I'm repeating myself a little bit. But what is the problem with the Braj Gopis? The Braj Gopis, there's so much anxiety. They're so unhappy that Krishna's left Vrindavan and he's gone to Mathura. Well, Rupa Goswami's written a book glorifying Braj. And the title of that book is Mathura Mahatmya, because Mathura is a place in Braj, and it's not that far away from Vrindavan. In fact, Radhanath Maharaj famously, for years, when he would go to Vrindavan, until he became a big person, and everybody's begging him to ride in the car with him, but he would take a train to Vrindavan. He would walk from the train station to Vrindavan, which is maybe 20 kilometers. It's a little bit of a walk, but not so bad. So what's the problem with the Braj Gopis? Krishna's not that far away. If they go really fast, and they can run really fast, they could probably get there in just a few hours. So why are they lamenting? They could have easily walked to Mathura, but what they're missing is Krishna's service. And of course, they could also render service in Mathura, but it's not the same. And therefore, Srimati Radharani, when she's united with Krishna in Kurukshetra, she says in Chaitanya Charitamrita that I don't want this. We don't want you here with all these kings and warriors and elephants. We want you in Vrindavan. You come with us there. And why do they want him in Vrindavan? Because they want to render service. And there's no facility for service in Mathura. Everything's completely, as we would say in Espanol, perhaps yucco mundo, very, very yucky. The Brijbasis, when they were going to Kurukshetra to meet with Krishna, as we commented, everybody was bringing gold and jewels. All the different kings from all over India were bringing gold and jewels and wealth to give in charity. But the Brijbasis, they went there in wooden carts with piles of gobar, cow dung, in the back of the cart. That was their wealth. Why are they carrying gobar? Because they know that Krishna likes the taste of foodstuffs which are cooked over that gobar, over the cow dung of the cows of Braj. It has such a very, very special flavor. So they're bringing that for service, because their life and soul is simply to render service. Similarly, in the Ramayana, when Lord Ramachandra arrived at Rishyamukh, Sugriv heard that this powerful Kshatriya had arrived there. And he was a little worried. He thought, oh, maybe Bali has sent someone to kill me, or maybe Bali's come in a different form or something. So he sent his trusted advisor, Hanuman, in the form of a Brahman, to go and inquire who that Ram was. So that Brahman showed up, and the Brahman is Hanuman. And Hanuman asked Lord Ramachandra, who are you? And Lord Ramachandra identified himself. He said, I'm the son of Maharaj Dasarath and Kaushalya. And then he asked, who are you? And as soon as he said that to Hanuman, Hanuman began to cry. Now, externally, this is the first time they ever met. But Hanuman began to cry, and he said, you don't recognize your eternal servant? This is the bhav that rose in the heart of Hanuman. It's said that Hanuman wanted just to serve Lord Ramachandra. Lakshman was doing all different services for Ramachandra. He was doing everything. He was cleaning the house. He was sometimes cooking for Ramachandra. He was washing clothes. He was doing everything. Also matters of state, and sometimes going and fighting with Ramachandra and things. And then one day, his dear brother Ram got married. And when Ram married Sita, Sita started complaining. She said, this is not good. I'm supposed to be your wife. Many times wives, they complain. What was Sita's complaint? Sita's complaint was that I also want to do some service. Lakshman's doing all the service. It's not fair. I'm supposed to be your wife. At least I should be able to wash some dishes and wash some clothes and things. This Lakshman, he does everything and he won't let me do anything. So then Ramachandra, he called for Lakshman. He said, look, there's a problem. There's some dispute. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide the services between the state affairs and the household affairs. And they did like that. Lakshman wasn't very happy about that, but he couldn't do anything. He couldn't say anything. Later, after Lord Ramachandra killed Ravan, Ramachandra offered Hanuman a benediction. And Hanuman just said, please let me serve. And so then with that benediction from Lord Ram, it meant that Hanuman was doing all the services. He was so ecstatic. And Lakshman wasn't doing any more services. Sita wasn't doing any more services. Hanuman was doing everything. So again, Sita complained. Said, look, this is not right. This monkey, he's just come here and now he's doing all the services. I'm your wife. I should be allowed to do some services. So Lord Ramachandra is a great diplomat. So he told her, you make a list of all the different services and you distribute them. So then Sita, maybe she was a little annoyed with that monkey. She made a list of all the services and she divided them with everybody, primarily with Lakshman, but she didn't give any services to Hanuman. And then Hanuman started to cry. Now I have no service. What is the value of my life? And then Hanuman finally found a service that every time Lord Ramachandra would start to yawn, then Hanuman would start playing the Shanai. So that he could sleep very peacefully. Shanai is a very auspicious sound. And so then what that meant was that Hanuman was staying day and night with Sita and Ram. And every time Ram would yawn or lay down, then Hanuman would ecstatically start playing the Shanai. And Sita, not only was she not able to sleep, but she wasn't so thrilled. And there's this guy staying here in our bedroom with Ramachandra and I. This is not good. And all night long, this Hanuman just blowing on this Shanai. He won't stop the noise. So again, she went to Ramachandra and she complained again. And Ram called for Hanuman. He said, look, Hanuman, you can't stay here in the room with my wife and I. This is not appropriate. You're a brahmachari. Sita doesn't appreciate this. You have to stay outside the room. So now Hanuman had another problem. He only had one service. His service was he'd start playing the Shanai. The Shanai is an auspicious sound. When someone yawns in Vedic culture, it's considered to be inauspicious. especially when you're starting a journey. If all of a sudden a yawn comes to your face when you're starting a journey, some people say you should stop the car or whatever and just wait for a moment and then start again, because it's considered to be a very inauspicious omen. So to create some auspiciousness, whenever Lord Ramachandra would yawn, of course, Lord Ramachandra's yawn is also very auspicious, but Hanuman would play the Shanai. But now he can't see, because he's outside the door, he can't see when Ram is yawning, when he's not yawning. So Hanuman, just to play it safe, he just started playing the Shanai 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And again, Sita complained, look, it's this monkey again, this guy, he won't stop. So again, Lord Ramachandra called for him. And he said, Hanuman, really, it's just too much. You're creating trouble here. You have to stop playing the Shanai like this. So a few days went by, and Hanuman was very unhappy. He couldn't do his service. And then suddenly a strange thing happened. And Lord Ramachandra's mouth opened, and it wouldn't shut. He couldn't speak anything. And Sita became terrified, and she realized, oh, it's because we stopped Hanuman's service. And so then she ran to Hanuman and she allowed him to serve. And then Lord Ramachandra's mouth became normal. So this is what our Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas have taught us, that service is our everything. In fact, the word bhajan, which comes from the verbal bij dhatu, bhaj, is defined in the Garuda Purana. Bhajyatye shevai dhatuhu sevayam parikirtitaha tasmat seva budai propta bhakti sadhana bhuyasi. That the word bhaj specifically means seva buddha, it means service. So when the sadhana is performed, sadhabhuyasi, with the consciousness of being a servant, that's called bhakti. Let's repeat that. When we do sadhana with the consciousness of being a servant, that's bhakti. This is the problem in the described by Lord Vishnu in the Padma Purana, when one day he called for Lord Shiva. And he said, Lord Shiva, there's a problem. What is it, my Lord? He said, the problem is the demons are practicing bhakti. And Lord Shiva said, really, that's a problem? Does that sound like a problem? The demons are forming. I know a few demons who are performing bhakti. And Lord Vishnu said, yes, it's a problem. Because they're not doing it with the consciousness of being a servant. They're doing it as a sadhana, but they're not doing it with the consciousness of being a servant. And because of that, their activity is not good. It's not pleasing to the heart. And because of that, then they do very nasty activities and things. And then what will happen is that my devotees will be criticized. And for Lord Vishnu, that's the worst thing in the world. I can't tolerate thinking of my devotees being criticized. So he asked Lord Shiva that you please go and you do something to stop that. The Smriti Shastra gives a very similar verse, almost word for word the same. Bhajyate shavai dhatuhu sevayam parikirtitaha, exactly the same. Tasmat seva budai propta, exactly the same. Bhakti sabdena bhuyasi. The other one says bhakti sadhana bhuyasi. This is bhakti sabdena. That the intelligent people, they say that this bhakti means doing service. If there's no service, it's not bhakti. So we should always have that kind of attitude. Anyone who's desiring their own benefit should take shelter of Krishna and the devotees of the Lord. And they should think of whatever distress or problems come within that service as being their greatest happiness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Saranagati, he's described a verse that my Guru Maharaj used to like very much. I'm trying to remember, how is it? Let's see here. Tomara sevaya dukkha hoya jata seyota parama sukha seva sukha dukkha parama sampada nasaya vidya dukkha. He says that whatever problems, whatever difficulties, whatever unhappiness comes, when I'm doing your service, tomara sevaya dukkha hoya jata, whatever dukkha or unhappiness comes, seyota parama sukha, that's going to be the cause of my greatest happiness. Because seva sukha dukkha parama sampada, in your devotional service, both happiness and misery are the same. Both things are appreciated equally. So this is the mood of the devotees. They don't want anything for themselves. They simply think, I want to please Krishna. And persons who are thinking like that's the mood of Vrindavan. And those devotees are really bridge basis. And we want to associate with such persons. Gorkishada's Babaji was once asked why he was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I'm trying to remember this story too. He was seeing Gorkishada's Babaji living such a very, very austere life and eating. Sometimes he would just fast. Sometimes he would just, when his stomach started growling, he would just reach over and take some mud from the ground and just eat some of the Ganga mud to stop the growling of his stomach. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, how is it you're going through all this suffering? And he said, no, this is not suffering. This is the greatest happiness for me. That place where we have some difficulties in our service, that's real service. Because we're not just a fair weather friend. It's not just that when the marriage is going good and there's lots of money and there's this thing and that thing that I'm happy in my marriage. But when there's problems, as we say in America, at the time of the wedding, they say in happiness or distress, we're always going to be together. There's a nice verse, vipado naiva vipada, sampado naiva sampada, that we should understand that vipada, Kunti Devi uses this word, vipada shantitasas, but it means problems. And she prays for more and more problems. This verse describes vipada naiva vipada, that problems are not actually problems. Sampada naiva sampada, that wealth is not actually really wealth. Vipad vismaranam vishno sampan narayana smiti. The only real vipad, the only real problem in this world is vismaranam Vishnu, to forget the Lord. And the only wealth, sampan narayana smiti, the only wealth is to remember him. This is the attitude of the devotees. And for the devotees, they just want to serve, and there's nothing more than that service. Lord Nityananda's associate, Nayananda Thakur, wrote a very beautiful book called Krishna Bhakti Rasa Kadamba. And in chapter 3, he speaks some about the glories of service. Now, I'll put these Bengali verses on the board here. Quite nice. Hena mukti sukha vancha na koi bhakta gana seva kababa jati nahi ran. That the devotees of Krishna, they don't hena mukti sukha vancha na koi bhakta gana. They don't desire liberation where there's some difference. There's no conception about the servant and the served. That the Lord is a personality to be served, and I just want to be his servant. Mukti hoile seva sukha napaya tahate seva sukha bhakti phala satata bhakate. He says that on the platform of liberation, mukti hoila seva sukha napaya tahi, there's no seva sukha, there's no happiness or service. Seva sukha bhakti phala satata bhakate. And the devotees, they constantly enjoy that seva sukha. So much so that Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he speaks about this, about how the seva sukha, the sevananda is much, much greater than Premananda. And he gives different examples, such as Daruka, the chariot driver of Krishna, who on one occasion was fanning Krishna, and he became so ecstatic. The symptoms of asasatvikara bhav arose in his body. He started crying, he started shaking. And what did he do at that time? He started cursing those ecstatic symptoms. And he prayed to the Lord, please, may these go away. Please take these away so that I can do my service. Because service is the greatest thing. Bhakti mukti ebheda purani lakshana bhakti gana sevananda koriye partana. And therefore the devotees, they're always part seva yakarana, they're always praying for this service. They're praying for the Sevananda. This is the topmost thing. And this is what Narottam Das Thakur is admonishing us here. In the previous verse, he told us that we should live in Vrindavan with the Brijbasis. And the way to live in Vrindavan is to do Krishna Katha and to chant Krishna Nam and to serve those devotees. And by doing so, we'll be able to always be in Vrindavan. But then he goes on to explain that even higher than that is to desire to do service. And Kaviraj Goswami goes on to explain that this is a symptom that someone, their sthai bhav or their relationship with Krishna has awakened. Krishna madhurja sevananda praptir karanas, Krishna seva kori ar, Krishna rasa aswadana. That when this they've obtained this relationship with Krishna, then they get this sevananda. And at that time, Krishna rasa aswadana, they really taste the mellow of Krishna bhakti ras. And for such devotees, Kaviraj Goswami says in chapter 4 of Adi Lila, that when that Premananda gets in the way with Sevananda, then the devotee becomes angry with it. Nija Premananda Krishna Sevananda Bhadi. Sevananda Pratir Bhaktir Hoy Mahakroti. Mahakroti means they become very angry. The devotees become angry with that ecstasy. And therefore Daruka, he was cursing that ecstasy and praying to the Lord, please make this go away. Srimati Radharani, similarly, sometimes once Radharani, she was looking at Krishna with so much ecstasy, and then suddenly she started crying. But her tears, and so then she started condemning her ecstasy. May this go away. I just want to see. Because for Srimati Radharani, her service to Krishna is seeing Krishna. Kada Karishya Sihamam Kada Kata Padiksha. That sidelong glance of Srimati Radharani, that's her topmost service. How is that service? Just like young girls. When the young girls are in high school or something and the boys are looking at them, the girls are getting some happiness. And if there's no boys that look at them, or if a wife, if her husband won't look at her, then she feels unhappy. That glance of love, there's so much pleasure in that. And so for Krishna, he gets the most pleasure from the glance of the gopis. And they know that. And that's the service that they render for Krishna. So such devotees, they never give up their service. They can't tolerate even thinking about giving up their service. The Bhagavatam describes in the second canto, Dotatma Purusha Krishna Pada Mulam Namunchati, that person who actually has a pure heart, he'll never give up serving Krishna. This is Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on that verse. He says, Pada Seva. The sign of a pure heart is that they want to do service to Krishna's lotus feet. That's all that they want to do. Again, in Bhagavad Gita, in the famous verse 926, Krishna says, Patim Pashvam Palam Toyam Yami Bhakti Prayachiti Taraham Bhakti Paritam Ashnami Prayatatmana. Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur comments on that. He says, Atakva Chit Kama Krodadi Satvi Pi Ukata Damstaroga Damsanat Tasha Kimchit Karatvam Geyam. If someone, you see a devotee who seems like they're overwhelmed with lust or anger, don't look at the devotee like that. Rather, you should see that it's just like a snake. You see a cobra biting someone, but the cobra doesn't have any teeth. It's not a big thing. Yes, he's biting someone, but it's not anything to worry about. And Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur says, it's just an insignificant setback which doesn't have any long-term effects in the devotee's devotional life. So there's no poison in the snake's mouth, so its bite's not considered a serious problem, even though it looks dangerous to someone who's an uninformed observer. So similarly, in a devotee who some lust and anger and greed come, we shouldn't look at that. We shouldn't see, we should just look to see what is their determination for rendering service. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in that regard, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he quotes this verse that I like very much, Tati Krishna Bhaji Kori Guru Sevan Maya Jala Chuti Pai Krishna Charan. That is through a combination of bhajan and service to the Guru that we become free from Maya and we attain Krishna's lotus feet. So that seva, Narottam Das Thakur is saying, the devotees, they'll never give up that service. And he's saying that in the previous verse, Braja Basa Govinda Sevana, that how do we live in Vrindavan? We live in Vrindavan by doing service. Vrindavan is the place of service. I'm happy being here in New Gokul Dham. And I see that many devotees come for festivals here, and that's a nice thing. The devotees, they have very beautiful deity worship and beautiful buildings and beautiful Govardhan Hill and Radhakund and Shamakund. But if people come and they think that's the main quality of this community, I think they've misunderstood. Because I've seen really the quality here is that the devotees, they like to render service. They like to serve each other. They like to serve guests. They like to serve Radha Gokulananda. And that's really what makes Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to establish Vrindavan villages, but without rendering service to the devotees or having that service attitude, it's not possible to live in Vrindavan. Previously, Navadas in his Bhaktamala tells a story about one devotee whose name was Haridas. And he was a great devotee. He was very, very fond of serving the Vaishnavas. And one day, Haridas had gone out to do some work or something. And while he was gone, a group of Vaishnavas came. And his wife greeted them and served them very nicely, and they finally left. But when Haridas returned, and he heard from his wife that the Vaishnavas had come, you missed seeing them. Haridas became so sad. He went running after them just to have their darshan. He had so much love for the Vaishnavas, even though he didn't know what Vaishnavas they were, but just these are Vaishnavas are chanting the holy name. And Krishna was so pleased with him, seeing his love for the devotees. Krishna appeared before him in the form of a devotee and said, hey, where are you going? And then Haridas, he told him, he said, well, there's some Vaishnavas came to my house while I was gone, and I wasn't there to serve them. I'm looking for them. I want to find them. And Krishna told him he's dressed as a devotee. And Krishna says, you just have my darshan, and you'll get the benefit of seeing the devotees. And it's the fact. But Haridas had some doubt. He said, well, I don't know. If I associate with the devotees, they do kirtan in such a wonderful way. Can you do kirtan like the devotees do? And when I'm with the devotees, the way they honor prasadam, it's so ecstatic to be with the devotees and take prasadam. And Krishna said, yes. And then all of a sudden he started doing kirtan. It seemed as though thousands of devotees were doing kirtan. And Haridas was very impressed. He said, okay, well, that's test number one. Test number two, come to my house. And he gave him huge amounts of prasadam, like enough for hundreds of devotees. And Krishna ate everything, dressed as a devotee. Some of the brahmacharis can do like that. They're very powerful. And then Haridas could understand, oh, this is not just an ordinary personality, but this is the Lord. And he gave me his darshan in this way. And then Krishna appeared before him, this threefold bending form, and the peacock feather on his head and the flute, and gave him his ashirvad, his blessing, because Haridas had firm faith in serving the Vaishnavas. So serving the Vaishnavas is such a special thing that one of the names of the Lord in the Vishnu Sahasranam is Sadhu. And Baladi Vidyabhushan in his commentary explains that the Lord is known as Sadhu because he's always doing seva. He's always doing service to the Vaishnavas in so many different ways. So this is our verse today that Narottam Das Thakur is telling us. I'll put this up on the board again and we can go ahead and stop here. Let's see. Sada seva abhilas mani kori vishayas sarvakaya hoya nirbhaya Narottam Das bole parino asat bole paritrana koro mahashoy. He says, my dear Lord, my dear mind, that going back to the previous verse, he says, if you do this Krishna Katha, Krishna Nama, then Satya Rasadama, the Dham will manifest. If you do this Brajabasa, Govinda Seva, and you stay in that place and you do service to Govinda by doing Krishna Katha and Krishna Nam, then the Dham will manifest with all rasa. And Brajaloka Sangi Anukshana, you'll be able to associate with the devotees. And the symptom of that is Sarvakaya Hoya Nirbhaya. You won't have any fear. There won't be any anxieties. Sometimes even in devotee communities, there's anxieties. I don't know, this person doesn't like me. There's this scandal going on. There's this thing, there's that thing, there's some politics or this or that. But if we're absorbed in Krishna Katha, we're absorbed in Krishna Nam, then there's no anxiety, there's no problem. Satya Rasadam. The Dham manifests in truth. That Dham is truth. It manifests that the Krishna Katha and Krishna Nam that you're doing manifests in truth. And then you can really associate with the devotees. And then there's no fear, there's no anxieties whatsoever, because you're confident that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. And they might be an angry person, they might shout at you, they might say this thing or that thing, but you're completely undisturbed by it, because you have firm conviction, this is what I should be doing. I should be doing Krishna Katha and Krishna Nam. They may like it, they may not like it, but that's no problem. That's just Krishna testing me in this way. So Narottam Das Thakur, he says, this is my desire, that I always have sada seva abhilas. I always want to do this service, mani kori vishayas, that really serve, that faith means, firm faith means saranagati. If there's no saranagati, then there's no real faith. If there's no surrender, there's no real faith. So Narottam Das Thakur, he has a strong faith, and his faith is especially in service. Seva abhilash, mani kori biyayas, that I just want to serve. And with an attitude like that, there's no anxiety, there's no miserableness whatsoever. But Narottam Das Thakur, in his humility, he's saying that I'm not like that. I'm not doing Krishna Katha. I'm not doing Krishna Nam. So my dear Lord, you please help me. And by praying to Krishna, Paritrana Koro Mahashoy. By saying Mahasoy, Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur explains that Narottam is calling out to the Lord. And indirectly, he's saying that I don't have ability to do this Krishna Katha and this Krishna Nam, and therefore I can't really associate with the devotees. Therefore, I'm not nearby. I'm full of all fear instead of no fear. So you please give me a taste. And this is indirectly what Narottam Das Thakur is saying here. Please give me a taste for your service. Give me a taste for this Krishna Katha. Without that taste, I can't go on. So we'll stop there. And maybe some of the devotees can share some thoughts or something. Brinda Sundar, you haven't been with us in so long. Do you want to share anything?
Well, I was thinking how on the different types of happiness, how they're at any moment and in any position of life and in any modes that we're in, we're always experiencing some version of emotions, some version of happiness. It kind of struck me like that sometimes as devotees we think we don't want to be emotional or how to say, like, yeah, we just don't feel. But actually the living entity is always feeling, and it doesn't stop.
Very important. But Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita and some of his purports, he says that this is the nature of the materialists. When they suffer in their material relationships, the girl falls in love with the boy, but she doesn't understand that he's got 4 other girlfriends on the side. And then she discovers that and she's humiliated. Or the boy, a similar thing happens, his wife leaves him or whatever. And then the tendency is then to think that the problem is material relationships. So I won't have any material relationships and then I'll be happy. But that we're also not successful at that either. Okay, thank you. Brajaraj Gopal has shared a few things. Do you want to, are you still online? Brajaraj Gopal?
Yes, Prabhuji. So I guess I had to, one reflection that I had was on this importance of seva. It's like our seva kind of defines, in some sense, our relationship with devotees, and those devotees are dear to Krishna. So it felt like the seva that we do for devotees is the way they will remember us. And I guess the way they remember us will be the way that whatever feeling they have for us will be, how Krishna sees our seva. So that was one reflection. I had 2 questions. One was regarding the first part of your talk where you were mentioning how you were mentioning how Gaur Gobind Maharaj says that the real Dhamvasis are the only real preachers. And in some sense, I've seen this amongst devotees in India. They do appreciate that there are devotees from all over the world coming to stay in the Dham, Mayapur and Vrindavan. But for them, a real Dhamvasi is one in an Indian body who has been raised or has trained under another Dhamvasi from who is in an Indian body, and so they have this thinking that, okay, it's nice to see all these foreign Vaishnavas, but the real Dhamvasis are those who have been raised, born, bred in the Dham. So I was just wondering, is there any Shastriya reference to break this bias? Yeah. I had another question as well.
Yeah. If we study Shastra, we'll find there's different conceptions given in different times. As we often comment in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the first Vilas, Bhatta Goswami describes the characteristics of guru and disciple, he says that it's important that one of the characteristics of a guru is that he should have good teeth. You should not accept someone who has like black teeth or something. And also you should accept someone from a Brahman family. In the Bhagavad Samhita, there's some description that women can be guru, but they have to be on a very high platform. They have to be liberated. It says like that there. And then it also says, but the real guru is someone who's born in a Brahmin family. So all of those considerations are bodily considerations. The greatest devotees in our line are the gopis. Janavamata, there's been so many lady gurus in our line. Guru is not just by their gender or even by their species, certainly not by their teeth. But then why does Gopal Bhatta Goswami and why does Bhagavad Samhita say such things? There must be some reason for that. Well, because there's some people who are very much in the bodily conception of life. And to them, they really would be better for them to take initiation from someone born in a Brahmin family. And as far as I'm concerned, personally, I have no problem with that. It's someone, if that's where their faith lies, their faith is something materialistic, their faith is something bodily, and they need that. Okay, that's fine. But Sanatana Goswami, his commentary on Hari Bhakti Vilas, he concludes, he says, but all these things are just external. And the real thing is someone has Krishna prema. Someone's a lover of Krishna. That's a real guru. So that's what we want to look for. But there's different considerations. So we can point that out. We can also point out that if you say that Dambhasis are the real gurus, then you may end up with Kamsa, with Putana as a guru. Because both Kamsa and Putana were born in Braj. And we see today there are many demons born in Braj. So it's not just some external bodily thing that we're looking for, although some people focus more on that. That's what Prabhupada would call smarta vichar, or bodily consideration. And that's there for some people because they have a strong bodily conception. To give you another example, in Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes a meeting between some of the Vaishnavas, pure Vaishnavas, and some Smarta Brahmins. And the Vaishnavas established through Shastra that Vaishnavas are to be respected by their qualities. Yashaya lakshanam proktam, the Bhagavatam says, by their lakshana, their quality, not by their janma, not by their birth. And they defeated the caste Brahmins. But then the caste Brahmins, they said, well, okay, now are you telling us then that a girl from a high-class Brahmin family, is it okay for a Yavana Malecha boy who's now a Vaishnav, for him to marry that girl? Right? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, no, that marriage should not take place. But what is the problem with that? We see that kind of, I know exact situation like that. I know one Italian devotee who married a high-class Brahmin girl in Jagannath Puri, and some of the local people became upset about it. Why is that consideration there? And how do we understand it in light of our Krishna consciousness movement? Well, it depends on your community, because marriage in this case is a very much community thing. If the entire community are devotees living in Denver, Colorado or something, and they all have a consideration of Krishna Bhakti as being prominent, and the followers of Srila Prabhupada, it probably wouldn't be a problem. But if they're living in Jagannath Puri or someplace like Vrindavan where there's a lot of smartas, then it may be difficult. I don't really see any necessity, Brajaraj Prabhu, in necessarily defeating them. People should act according to their degree of faith. And good luck. If you're going to, if your level of faith is based on the body, that the guru must be some bodily thing, it has to be this gender, or guru has to have good teeth, or guru has to be born in a Brahmin family, guru has to be born in the Dham. and can't be born anywhere else. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, there's a series of verses glorifying Haridas Thakur and different Vaishnavas. It's described too how the Lord makes devotees take birth in different places just to glorify the devotees and just to purify those places. Therefore, he has them take birth sometimes outside of the Dham. So the thing that we should be looking for is the qualities of a devotee, not just their birth. But some people are really hung up on the birth thing, on the bodily thing, on the gender thing, on the type of teeth they have thing. So there's descriptions given in Shastra for them. And that's okay, but it's also said that better than this is this other thing. So they may think I've got the best guru, he's got good teeth, he's born in a nice family in Vrindavan, this and that, and it's a nice Brahman man, but they may become disappointed. Is that helpful, Brajaraj Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. It's like it's it's a little strong. At least in the West, I've seen like some Indian boys come to our sangha and say, well, yeah, it's nice, you're doing all your kirtan, but this is not the right standard. You should do it this way. So if they come from the same idea of people who think that, oh, Dhamvasi means only Indian. So yes, but I find it good.
And such people, they make Jatayu and Hanuman feel very sad because they're not even human beings.
Sure. Prabhuji, another question that I had was about seva. You were saying that seva is everything for a devotee, and that pastime of Hanuman and Sita Devi, it was quite deep for me, because I've always had this conception that a true seva means that it reminds you of Krishna or your Ishtadev, and but I guess when I, as a Baddha Jeev, perform seva, I'm focused on a result. Okay, we are having an event. We need to get 50 people. There is this event. You have to cook for 50 people. So there's a goal, and that goal is driving me. I'm not, so to say, thinking of Krishna as I perform the seva, or maybe even after I perform the seva, I feel a satisfaction of having served the jivas, but it's not, so to say, like, oh yes, it's like Krishna, I remembered you throughout this seva. So I was trying to understand, when is it a dovetailing of our propensity, and when is it really seva for the pleasure of Krishna?
Well, it should be done under the guidance of Guru. And in the beginning, we just practice something. And as we often comment in regards to your question, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, in his explanation of the verses in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, describes 3 levels of bhakti: abhyasa, manana, and smarana. Smarana is the goal. We want to remember Krishna all the time. But in the beginning, we're just practicing. And it may be mindless. We're just sweeping the temple. We're distributing books because we were told to, and we're trying to get a big result. We're trying to get a lot of people to come to the festival or something. And we're not really thinking about Krishna. We're not really thinking about Gurudev, but we're practicing. Krishna says, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena, that we should practice yoga. But from practice, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the darpana, the mirror of our consciousness, becomes cleansed. And then we become peaceful enough to come to the platform of manana, where we begin to consider, why am I doing this? Without considering, why am I doing what it is? What is the purpose of it? Then we don't go very far, because it's just ritualistic. When we begin practicing manana and thinking about why I'm chanting, what is the purpose of my chanting? What is the goal of my chanting? Is the goal of my chanting just to finish my prescribed number of rounds? Or is the goal of my chanting to get liberation? Is the goal of my chanting to become free from material desires? Is the goal of my chanting to know Krishna? Is the goal of my chanting to have Krishna prema, to serve Krishna? What is the goal of my chanting? So we should listen to Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas who are giving us not just this mantra names, but are giving us the consciousness behind it. And we know if we're dovetailing properly, if we're acting properly by following the orders of Guru. And by doing that abhyasa, practice, we come to manana, and then from manana will naturally come smarana at some point. Is that okay? Is that helpful?
Thank you, Prabhuji. That three stages of seva really helps. Thank you.
Brenda Sundari, you get the prize for the best quote, best comment of the day. She commented, "Who would have thought that dentists could create gurus?" I really appreciate that. Well, let's see who else is here. Gorni Taiprabhu was here earlier. Gorni Taiprabhu, would you like to share anything? It must be getting late where you're at right now, 10 o'clock or something. That's why there's no lights on when you're. Hare Krishna. You're in Vrindavan now? It looks like an internet connection from Vrindavan, very slow. And we can't hear you, Prabhuji. You're muted. You have to unmute yourself. And as slow as you're going,
so I unmuted. It's okay.
Yeah, it's good.
So I am in Vrindavan. Before we have some electricity, but no, we don't have because the Yamuna is flooded all the places. Yamuna is up, on the Parikram road, so there is no Parikrams going on. Big flood. Anyway, I am very happy to be with you with the group because it's like another Vrindavan. We are discussing about Krishna, about holy persons, and it's very beautiful. So yes, thank you very much. This topic of seva is really beautiful, and I just remind me today have a very good opportunity to have a association with really pure soul here. I don't know, maybe Sadhu Maharaj is living here in his. Yeah,
I do know Sadhu Maharaj.
He met with Prabhupada. Yes, so he accepted us to be there, and we have a nice discussion and about the guru, about who is guru and such. But he was so deeply explaining this kind of understanding of yes, we want to reach not just Krishna, we want to reach more than Krishna. We want to reach Radharani's service because Krishna also want to reach Radharani's service, and when Krishna want to understand himself, he only can understand himself by his internal energy. And if you serve the internal energies, we are part of that great service that Krishna understanding himself. Anyway, so he explained so many nice things, and then so it was very great. And he told that Prabhupada is like a Param Guru, and the discussion is who is Brij Basi. So if we say Prabhupada is not Brij Basi, then what we say. So Prabhupada is not to birth in Braja. Prabhupada to birth in Kolkata. Very horrible place. But who is Prabhupada? Prabhupada is very, very special soul, part of Braja, part of this place. And if someone knows Prabhupada, if someone study Prabhupada books, he explained. If someone really find Prabhupada, explains everything, explains the highest truth, explains the most confidential truth, then that person goes on the path of the highest devotional service. So this is the seva, and seva comes naturally. He told that when someone understands Srimati Radharani or Lord Chaitanya, then the seva, the chanting is naturally coming. So that's why we need to understand Lord Chaitanya according to the words of Prabhupada, and then everything comes natural. So that's I would put together, and This Vrindavan is, wow. I never wanted to come back to Vrindavan because I was thinking it's so difficult to come here. But no, being here, I never want to leave. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Prabhupada's a Brijbasi, but Putin and Kansa are not, even though Putin and Kansa.
Yeah.
And today there are many Putanas and Kansas in Braj. And we also in the West, in our society too, we have to be careful. But wherever the devotees are serving together in Harikatha and Kirtan and doing service to people, that's New Brajadam. That's Braj. There's a beautiful prayer you're making me think of, which I said it from Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Govinda Vallabhe Radhe Prataye Tvamaham Sada Todiyam Iti Jana tu Govindo Mam Toya Saha. It's a prayer to Radharani. Oh Radha, you're Govinda Vallabha. You're very dear to Govinda. So I hope that Govinda understands that Prataye Tvamaham Sada, I always belong to you. I only belong to you and to no one else. That's the prayer of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Krishna should understand. It's nice, Krishna, I'm worshiping you, but really what I want to serve Radha.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for wishing. Hare Krishna. Hey, when are you coming back to Hungary? Are you going to come back? You're just going to throw your passport in the Radhakund and just never come back again?
Yeah. In October, in November. When Guru Maharaj comes, then I can go.
Uh-huh.
But I'm thinking, I'm not sure.
I'm looking forward to seeing you, but I really hope we're not in Hungary at that time. I hope we're back in India by that time. We'll see. Hare Krishna. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Thank you.
And let's see, Vikram Prabhu, Vikram Keshav, do you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just wanted to thank you for beautiful katha. And I have one question, if you can elaborate. You said that if we are fortunate enough, then we get the chance to associate with advanced devotees. So if you could say a few words more about what does it mean to become fortunate enough?
Well, I wrote a book some years ago. It was a book about my Guru Maharaj's life. But I felt strongly to myself that it's not enough just to say he was born in this year and he did this thing and this person saw him and they had this experience. But it should be something which is eternal, and it should be something which is a reflection of his own heart. And so we called the book When Good Fortune Arises, which is a phrase he often used, that when good fortune arises. And how does that good fortune arise? What is that good fortune? Good fortune means when we come in contact with such an advanced Vaishnava. What does it mean to come in contact with such a Vaishnava? Someone may see Srila Prabhupada on the airplane. That's certainly good fortune, but we can't compare it to someone who's spent time with Srila Prabhupada and has heard from Srila Prabhupada. Because as Srila Prabhupada used to say, we see, there's a verse in 3:9:11, Shitekshita Pata. This is the pathway of seeing through our ears. We see the sadhu through our ears. So real association, real good fortune means that we hear Krishna Katha. Otherwise, just to come in contact with someone and say, yeah, I had my photo taken with Maharaj, what's the value of that? But when we've heard Krishna Katha from them, we understand their heart and we render service to them. That's really good fortune. So how does that good fortune arise? The good fortune arises for someone, my Guru Maharaj said, who's doing Atmakrandana, who is crying in the heart. Oh, Krishna, please help me. I want to serve you. I want to serve you, but I want to associate with sadhu, but I don't know who's sadhu. I don't know what to do. Please help me. Please help me. And this is such an important principle for me. It's something my Guru Maharaj stressed so much. And Vikram Prabhu, you know, we all know, everybody in this group, I think, including our Brenda Sundari, is the temple president in Denver, that devotees complain about managers. Devotees complain about institutional things. But this is a solution, that there's no one who can control your heart. There's no one who can tell you when you can cry and when you can't cry. And so when that intense urge comes in our heart that Krishna, I want you, I want a sadhu, and we begin to cry, you don't have to have GBC approval to do that kind of bhajan. Krishna will come automatically. And that's good fortune. That good fortune will arise automatically when we're doing that Atma Krandana. Is that helpful, Vikram Prabhu? Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Are you mute? Yeah, you're muted. Mataji, do you have anything you want to share?
Yes, thank you for this very nice kata. At the beginning, you said that we should feel hopeless in this material world. So I see in my life, I feel like that in some occasions when I'm sick, when I'm in trouble. But if everything is very nice, going well, then I don't feel that hopelessness. What to do to increase that feeling of hopelessness?
There's a story I tell sometimes that once there was a wife, she was staying at home, taking care of two children, and while her husband was working. And one day her husband phones her up and says, my dear wife, guess what? In 2 hours, I'm coming home with the boss, and I want you to cook a big meal for us. And the poor lady, she's got a new baby and she's got a toddler who's like 5 years old, not a toddler, but a 5-year-old child, small child, still running around causing troubles. So she didn't know what to do. So she started cooking, but as soon as she starts cooking, the baby starts crying. And she would go to the baby and pick up the baby and give it some milk, but the baby would start, and she just couldn't cook. Finally, she called for the 5-year-old, and she gave the 5-year-old a little money and said, I want you to go to the corner, and there's a shop there, and I want you to, there's a nice red ball with some bells inside of it, and you buy that red ball, that toy. Yes, mother. And so he went and purchased the toy, and he brought it back, and the mother gave the toy to the baby, and the baby stopped crying. And the mother then was able to cook. But after some time, the baby, it didn't want the toy anymore either, and it threw the toy and started screaming very loudly. And then the mother knows a certain voice that the toy is not going to work anymore. She would come and shake the ball, do this, but at a certain point, the baby's screaming. The scream means, I don't want this damn ball. I want you. And so the mother has to come. So in a similar way, Krishna gives us so many toys. We have a new computer, we have a cell phone, we have this and that. And those new toys distract us in such a way that we think, actually, things are pretty good. I've got a nice, beautiful new sari. I have some nice new ornaments. We have a nice new furniture in the house. We have this thing, and that life's pretty good, actually. It's not bad. We think like that, and we stop crying. But then at a certain point, when we understand all those things to be just tinsel. I was using that word before. You may not be familiar with it. The tinsel's the silvery little strings you put on the Christmas tree, which look bright, but they're tinsel in America. They have no value. When we realize that all my material possessions and my clothes and my bodily beauty and my this and that, which I place so much happiness in, they're meaningless. Then we can really begin to cry. So what is the root of all that? In the Hare Krishna movement, we always have the same answer. We give basically 2 answers to every question. Chant Hare Krishna and associate with advanced devotees. So that's still the answer in this regard too, that if we associate with advanced devotees who are really crying in the heart, then we pick up that feeling. And as we were saying earlier in our discussion, that in their association, all of a sudden, all of our our fancy toys, our new computer, our nice car, or this thing or that thing. It's just a cheap, nasty thing. And this person doesn't have it. I remember once we went to visit a sadhu who was staying at Govindakund. And I didn't even know someone could be living where he was. I just thought it was an old broken building. And you kind of had to crawl through some bushes. There was a little like hole in the bushes, and you crawl through there and you go in, and there's this old broken building, which it would be illegal for anybody in Europe or America to even live there. And you go there and everything was spotlessly clean. And the whole place, it just had like a beautiful, beautiful what? Radiance, a beautiful, beautiful feeling coming from it. Everything was so clean, nice cow dung everywhere, and beautiful tulsi there, and everything was so clean and simple. And the sadhu was there doing bhajan. And he had nothing. He had literally nothing. We have so many things in the West, but then you go and you see him and you really feel like, actually, he's really got something, but I don't have anything. We want to associate with devotees like that. And we want to always remember that. And if we remember that, then our movement will be spontaneous. Devotees will be inspired in our movement. But when things become artificial and people, just say, well, he's the manager, he's in charge, he's setting the rules, therefore you have to follow them, then we don't feel so inspired. We have to see examples of saintly persons. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you. Yes,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you. Jai Gaur. Okay, Jai Gaur, you asked me to share something before. You're asking me again. I'll share it, but you have to remind me later on. I think before I forgot. I don't remember what it is now. Let me just read over a few comments. Leela Purushottam Prabhu, his nice comment. He says, this point about the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas, I think, is so nicely discussed in the article by Bhaktivinoda and on Purushottam Mas, about the types of Shraddha, about the types of faith. It's a fact. It's a beautiful article. We shared that with everybody in our group. If somehow you didn't get that article, I don't know who might not have gotten it. Ishwari Prema may not have gotten it. You can write to me, just mention something, but remind me, otherwise I'll forget. I promise I will forget. And Jai Gaur comments that Bhaktivinoda also says in Jaiva Dharma, in the same place, it is in the same place, Jai Gaur, that the Vaishnavas follow the rules of Varnashram Dharma in order to not disturb people in general, but they're not beholden to them. They're not obliged to do that. It's such an important thing. Siddhahari Prabhu had to check out, it looks like. Sorry, we missed him. Oh, Siddha, you're still here. Do you want to share anything, Siddhahari Prabhu? Or maybe he's driving in the car. I'm just going to read it.
The comment that he started to drive and then he can't talk.
Yeah. Okay. He said, I appreciate the kata. Have a question. As are difficulties in life of initiated devotee because of Krishna's mercy or previous karma? A follow-up, some devotees say that just like one visits a doctor, one can visit an astrologer for problems. What would you say? Well, it depends on our attitude, isn't it? Certainly everything sarva karana karanam is because of Krishna. And whether Krishna is directly sitting in Goloka Vrindavan and he calls for Radharani, he says, I've been thinking about that Ishwari Prema, and she's there with her little boy, and I'd like to give her some problems so she remembers me more often. Whether Krishna's actually directly thinking that or not is really, in one sense, is what we would call a mute point, mute meaning a meaningless point, because we should just see Krishna in everything. And if we don't see Krishna in everything, then maybe we'll see some other thing. Maybe it's because of my karma or something like that. But ultimately, we should see Krishna has some message for me. And maybe I can't hear it because I've got some wax in my ears, just like in marriage, sometimes the husband can't hear the wife or the wife can't really hear the husband. But we should try to hear the other person. We should try to hear Krishna's voice. So some devotees say that just like one visits a doctor, one can also visit an astrologer for problems. What would you say? Well, in Hari Bhakti Vilas, there's a number of verses saying that you don't need to go to doctors. There's no need to take any medicine. You just chant the holy name. And there's many verses from different shastras supporting that point. If you just chant the holy name, there's no need to go to a doctor. I remember once my Guru Maharaj gave class speaking on these verses, and afterwards his friend Jagadatma Prabhu, his godbrother, said, but Guru Maharaj, you go to doctors. Guru Maharaj said, yes, I'm not on that platform, and you can't imitate either. He said, but you should have faith that all we have to do is take shelter of the holy name and everything will be taken care of. But there is a medical system, and Murari Gupta was a Vaishnava doctor, an Ayurvedic doctor. And Ayurvedic medicine is a Vedic system. People practice it. Doing Hatha Yoga is a Vedic system by which we can get better health. But it's not required. All that's required in a short life that we have is to do Krishna Kirtan and Krishna Katha. But if we're more in the bodily conception, then we can do that. So similarly, astrology is also a Vedic science. And Prabhupada writes in Krishna book, or in 10th canto, so that every gentleman should understand some astrology. At the same time, too, Prabhupada discouraged devotees from going there. It depends on the degree of our faith. Just like we were speaking earlier, if someone really sees things in the bodily conception, then they should take initiation from some Indian-born person born in a Brahman family. And Shastra says like that. But if someone has faith in bhakti, which is what our acharyas are encouraging us to do, the Krishna Bhakti Koila Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. We just do Krishna Bhakti, everything else is taken care of. And there's no reason to go to astrologers. I don't like to go to astrologers. My Guru Maharaj was very angry about it when he saw devotees doing that. We took an astrologer when when Anapayani Radha was going to get married. Let's see, Pranahari Prabhu was here a little bit earlier. He's not here now. We helped arrange their marriage, and now they're engaged. We went to 3 different astrologers for that. And I also encourage devotees who have children, it's a good thing to get some chart done at their time of their birth and see what their nakshatra is. And based on that, you can give them a name and you can understand something about their character and things. But it doesn't mean that we should take shelter of astrology. If we take shelter of astrology, then we're not going to be taking shelter of Krishna. But Prabhupada says that you just clap your hands in front of the deity and the lines in your hands, your karma changes. So Krishna can change our karma. And every astrologer I've been to, and I've been to, we went with our sister-in-law, who's not a devotee, to one big Brigu Pandit, very famous astrologer. Some ISKCON gurus go to him and things in South Rajasthan. And he said some things that was kind of interesting, but he got a lot of things wrong. And I've seen and heard that whenever an astrologer tries to do a chart for a devotee, they can't see everything because Krishna's in control. And Krishna changes things. Sometimes he changes things a little, and you can see a lot in their charts. Sometimes he changes things a lot, and you practically can't see anything. I know one couple who've been married for over 30 years, and according to astrology, they're not compatible at all. But they actually, it's over 40 years, probably disciples. And Prabhupada told them to get married, and they had faith in that. So that's Krishna karma. So I hope that's okay, said Hari Prabhu. Brajaraj Prabhu has another quick question here. Can a specific service we do, especially when done because we like it, as it dovetails my mind, can that be a cause of attachment? Because when someone obstructs my service and tells me to do it their way or another way, I get upset and judge them. Well, there's Sangha Siddha Bhakti. Sangha Siddha Bhakti is when we like doing something, and so therefore that's bhakti. It has there's some qualification. Yes, I'll do it. I'll happily do this, but it has to be something that I like. I don't like cleaning the toilets. I don't like doing hard work or something, but I like getting lots of respect from people. That's hoitaki bhakti. That's bhakti with a cause. Ahoitaki bhakti is when there's no cause. And that kind of bhakti is what's really yatma supersediti, which really gives pleasure to the heart. So we should just surrender to Guru and whatever Guru tells us. And Guru, oftentimes, I see in our society, Srila Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj and others, they would look to see what kind of qualifications someone had, and they would engage him accordingly. My Guru Maharaj did that with myself. He gave me a lot of specific instructions according to certain things that I had some propensity for. But that's not the highest thing. The highest thing is when Guru gives us his heart and tells you, I want you to do this service because this service is so very dear to my heart. And he's giving you the service not because it's something you like to do, but because it's something close to his heart, his or her heart. Okay. Natalia, would you like to share anything? Nice to see you. We'll be seeing you in a few days. You're still coming, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. It is always important to remind what is the most important things, what is the basic thing, what is they should be the priority of our heart and emotions yes, and when you were talking about different devotees who wanted their service, and this Sevananda is the highest. I was remembering Ukrainian devotees who are now in Europe, and they are, and other devotees who are European devotees were amazed that they are so blissful when they are doing services, and they are eager for service. Really, they don't ask anything about service. Really.
Yeah, those devotees from Ukraine, I'll tell you why. They've all been scarred from Naranjan Maharaj and other devotees. And he's just really trained them up just to do service, and just that service is the most important thing. That's such a beautiful thing. I remember Maharaj commenting to me when we were speaking once in Budapest. He told us, he said, I don't think the Ukrainian devotees, he said, they've gone all over the world. It's very nice. He said, but I think they're going to want to go back. I don't think they're going to be happy because their culture is their Ukraine. We're going in a couple of weeks with Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj.
Yes,
Radhanath Maharaj. It's a whole program with Radhanath Maharaj and Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj there. Anyway, thank you, Natalia. Hare Krishna. Ishwari Prema, do you want to share anything? Yeah, if you're with Govinda, that's okay.
Hare Krishna. Hear me? You can hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Nice kata. I want to ask one question. Our aim is to fall when we do service. We have mood to please. This, of course, is sometimes is very blissful to heart, and the mind is becoming attached to this. But we have spiritual pleasure, and then start to seek this. Like, I will do service, and I expecting the spiritual taste. But how to change this attitude, that it would be actually that I just really want to give pleasure for Krishna, and I even don't think that I can have something like spiritual benefit even.
Hey Govinda. Hi Bo Govinda. One of the types of affection for the Lord or for devotees or for service is called sopadika priti. There's some priti, we have some affection, but it's sa-upadika. It's with, look at Govinda, it's with some designation, because I like to do this. I'm a Kirtan. We identify ourselves as a Kirtan. We identify ourselves as a poet. We identify ourselves as a mother. We identify ourselves as a temple president. And we think I'm the one who has to be doing this service. And there's happiness in this service, but that happiness that's so padika priti, it's hoitaki priti. It's love, it's affection, happiness with a motivation. And because it's hoitaki, it's also pratiyata. Pratiyata means it has an end sometimes too. And it's not fully satisfying to the self. So we should really be happy when we get service, which has nothing to do with our designation, our ideas of what I am. Maybe I might be thinking I'm a publisher, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, but someone comes to me and says that you should carry umbrellas for the devotees so that they get out of the rain. And there's so much more happiness in that service that we can do, which is outside of my designated kind of service. Service should always be spontaneous. Service should always be natural. And if it's something forced, if it's something based on some designation that I have for myself, then it's not fully satisfying. Is that helpful?
Yes. But what to do if we're seeking this like spiritual satisfaction? I mean, this is external, that I am somebody, but we should seek happiness and not for ourselves, even it is spiritual happiness.
Okay, you kind of went out quite a bit there. But I think what you're asking, you can correct me, was that what if we want to have some spiritual happiness, and paradoxically, ironically, our desire to have that happiness is our own disqualification. We should want to just please the Lord and not be looking for our own happiness. But still, we should want to do seva, not for Krishna's pleasure, or we're wanting to do seva for Sevananda, Lila Purushottam, that's what you heard, and not for Krishna's pleasure. So therefore we have to understand Guru. We have to come close to Guru. That's the purpose of Guru. In a real language is a saying, Konafunka Guru. Konafunka means someone who comes and they spit in your ear. So Guru is not Konafunka Guru. It's not just someone who comes and spits in my ear and gives me mantra. He's not just mantra datta, but he's ashraya datta. He's someone who gives me shelter. And that shelter comes when we understand the heart of Guru. And then we can render service. And then we understand what is Krishna's pleasure. And then we start to think, oh, I was wanting to do these things. I wanted to go to Mayapur because I'm going to have a good time. I'm wanting to go to this festival because it's going to be so much fun for me. I'm wanting to lead these kirtans because I have this ego about this. And all those things then just become like broken toys of a child, useless and meaningless. And then we realize, no, I really want to do is I want to please my Guru. Is that okay, Ishwari? Okay. I think you've gone out.
Yes, okay.
Okay. If you want to write something, you could. I can't understand what you're saying. I want to go on. Radha Jivan Gopal Prabhu, do you want to share anything?
Haribol Prabhu, thank you for the nice katha. I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are, what your Guru Maharaj's definition was of a Vrajvasi. Like, what exactly does that entail? Like, what are the requirements to be considered a Vrajvasi?
There's different types of Brajbasis, and I thought about mentioning it to Brajaraj Prabhu also, that one type of Brajbasi is someone who's born in Vrindavan. But I know when we used to go and print at the press in Delhi, I found that pretty much all the press workers were Brajbasis. And the price of living became too much in Braj, so they sold their property and they moved to Delhi. Now they're working in a printing press, which is just like hell. They were really happy to see us printing things about Krishna and that. and they remembered Krishna. They're still Brajbasis. So someone who's born in Braj, someone who dies in Braj, that's also Brajbas. Someone who's moves to Braj and they're living in Braj, that's also Brajbasi. And someone who's in consciousness of Braj, like Srila Prabhupada, maybe he's in the West, but Prabhupada once was at Stowe Lake in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, walking, and suddenly he said, oh, it is Vrindavan. And Prabhupada's, his consciousness is Vrindavan. So he may be in San Francisco, but he's actually in Vrindavan, whereas someone else like Putana or like Kamsa, they're externally in Vrindavan, but they're not in Vrindavan at all. And therefore, for that reason, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj decided to leave his body in Gita Nagari in America to show that Gita Nagari is the holy Dham. Because that place where devotees come together and they do kirtan and Hari Katha, that place is really Vrindavan. And therefore, Narottam Das Thakur, he says, I think, Krishna Katha, Krishna Nama, Satya Satya Rasa Dhamma. That when you do Krishna Katha and Krishna Nam, Satya means truth, truth. This is the truth, this is the truth. The Dham manifests, and not just the Dham, but Rasa Dham. The Dham really manifests with all the mellows. Is that okay? And maybe there in Michigan, and you may be experiencing more bliss theoretically, depending on your consciousness and the association you have, the kirtan you're doing, than you might have it in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, you just get robbed by somebody and somebody beats you up or something, and it can be miserable. But those things are external. We want to be with Krishna. I like a sticker behind you I see sometimes, by the way. It's one of our stickers from Jagannath Puri.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the reference for that is. I've heard that before, but I'm just curious to know what the reference for that.
I would recommend, I don't remember if he gives a reference for that or not, but the best writing I've seen on that is in the beginning of Nava Braja Mandala by Shivaram Maharaj. And he gives an elaborate description of what is the Holy Dham and how the Holy Dham manifests. And I've never met anybody who would disagree, I think, with these definitions either. The six Goswamis, for example, they're Brajbasis, aren't they? But they're all born in West Bengal or in South India, in different places. They're not from Braj. Rupa and Sanatan and Gopal Bhatta, they're not from Braj. Jiva Goswami, they're not from Braj. They're from West Bengal or South India, but they're Brajbasis. And everybody in Braj, who's going to say the six Goswamis are not Brajbasis? They're rascals. Yeah, Never Braja Mahima by Shivaram Maharaj. And if someone wanted, I probably could get a soft copy of that article too, but you got to remind me. Okay.
But I'm wondering if that statement from your Guru Maharaj that the best preachers are the Vrajvasis, I wonder if you would apply that to the Basis of Mayapur, the Basis of Jagannath Puri.
Yes, definitely, because both Mayapur and Jagannath Puri are grouped to Vrindavan. And they're places we see Vrindavan in the consciousness, and the devotees are living in Vrindavan because they see that now the son of Nanda Maharaj has become the son of Mother Sachi, and worshiping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is worshiping Krishna, and not just in Mayapur and Jagannath Puri, but also in New Vrindavan and New Mayapur in France and New Gokul, where we're at here in Lithuania, and at the temple there in Ypsilanti. You know, all these places, these are Vrindavan, but we want to make them Vrindavan in truth, in Satya. Therefore, Krishna Katha, Krishna Nama, Satya Satya Rasa Dhamma. We have to do Krishna Katha and Krishna Nama, and then it'll become the Dham. Otherwise, Kadambakana Maharaj, they tried to murder him in Vrindavan. Someone took a gun and shot him to kill him. I don't think that person's living in Vrindavan, but it seemed like he was. And there's Gundas. I have a friend who, he did some bad things in Vrindavan. I won't get into that, but he just disappeared. And after a few weeks, they found him one day, and some local person had taken a tractor and driven over his head 3 or 4 times. Hare Krishna. So those kind of things go on. in Vrindavan. I know ladies who've talked to me who've been groped, and there was like a 75-year-old lady, they tried to rape her on the Parikrama mark. That whoever's doing it, that's not Vrindavan. Whereas if we have some nice Krishna Katha with the devotees, it may be in Michigan, it may be in Paris, it may be wherever, but it is a nice, that's really Vrindavan. Vrindavan manifests in that way. And that's the purpose of this movement. We don't want to just glorify a particular place like tourists. And it's the holy Dham, it's nice. But what we want is we want to make a change of consciousness in the world. We want to make Vrindavan villages all over the world. Is that okay, Prabhuji? That's what you're doing with it. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I hope we can come and see houses sometime. I'm always thinking about it. Gaura Prabhu, it must be about 4 o'clock in the morning there in New Zealand. Are you alive and well? Do you want to share anything? Maybe he can't. Sometimes the children are sleeping or something. Jai Gaur, do you want to share something?
Sure, Prabhu. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Thank you for the katha. I was thinking about when you quoted this Parkya Bhavayaha Brajati Prachar. You're saying that this when this mood of Vrindavan arises in the heart, then you become a real preacher. So I was wondering if you might be able to kind of unpack that statement, because I was thinking of a couple different things. There's that verse from CC where Janma Sartak Karapari Parakara Upakar, where Srila Prabhupada and also Gurudev says in the class, he expands on it, where Srila Prabhupada is saying that first you make your life perfect, and then you share that with others. And then I was also thinking, oftentimes you quote this verse where you're saying that before the time of initiation, that the whatever bhakti you do is just the senses engages with the sense objects. You say indriya vyapara. So is before the time when the mood of Vrindavan arises in the heart, is the preaching that we're trying to do, is it something like that? It's like not what's going on, and when we're trying to do something.
Don't worry about it. We should do whatever our guru orders us. But at the same time, yes, in a lot of ways, maybe it's just like a small child who wants to get enter into a big bicycle race, but he's got training wheels on the back of his bike. He's just riding a 3-wheeled bike. He's just imitating something, but there's some benefit to that imitation. There's some benefit to helping spread the holy name, even though we may be imperfect vessels. We just have, and we've seen that. You've seen that out in the Harinam. We may be conditioned souls, but something happens to those people because Srila Prabhupada's message is so powerful. Somebody was complaining recently about me and saying, how can you stay in ISKCON? You should leave and go to the Gaudiya Math or go to the Babajis. These people are so bad. And I was telling Krishna Kund today, do they think that there's no potency in my Guru Maharaj's words? That those words are just empty words and they're not going to do anything? Those words are so powerful. Srila Prabhupada's words are so powerful. Let's go and take them. But we're not the doer of that. And we're just a humble instrument. And we should understand that the real deal is someone who's living in Vrindavan, whose consciousness is completely in Vrindavan, not in the toilet of the material world. And that person is a real preacher. And we want to bring people to them. How do we bring people to them? Sometimes physically. Oh, tonight Maharaj is speaking at the temple. Why don't you come and hear him? And we bring somebody like that. Or maybe Maharaj is not there. Maybe Guru Maharaj is in India or something. But then we say, well, let me share something with you. And we tell him something we've heard coming in line from Srila Prabhupada, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, from our Gurudev. And there's some potency in that. And what we're doing, we're bringing that person to our Gurudev. Some devotees, they think that when we say that only Brijbasis can be preachers, that it means that none of us, we should just all close up shop and we should just sit at home until the Mahabhagavat Srup Shakti Krishna Pushta Parikar Nityasiddha Mahabhagavat Vaishnav shows up to speak, and we have no qualification for anything. That's wrong. We have an instruction, and that instruction may be mostly for our benefit, that we go out and by trying to talk to people about Krishna, we remember Krishna. But it's more than just that. Because the words that we share, that mantra that we share, there's something powerful there. And it's not us. We may not be Brijbasis, but we share that thing. And therefore, in the Bhagavatam, it said, Bahub Murtika Murtikam, in the 10th canto, that Krishna's Advaya, he's one. But Bahub Murtika Murtik, he becomes many. One Krishna, but he becomes many, like in the Ras Leela. All of a sudden, there's a Krishna next to every gopi, or in Dwarka, there's a Krishna in the house of all the different queens. Bahu Murtika Murtikam. He's one, but he becomes many. In his Artha Darshani commentary, Vishayananda Chakravarti Thakur says, Namapi Bahu Murtika Murtikam Chinmayinam Nanatvi Pyaikam Abhipetam. That in the same way that Krishna became many in the Ras Leela or in Dwarka, so similarly, when we hear one name from our Gurudev, like Gopakumar, he got one mantra from his Guru, and his Guru didn't even explain to him what the mantra meant. But that one mantra, that one name becomes many when we repeat it, but it doesn't belong to us. It's an echo of what we've gotten from our Gurudev. And then, of course, it'll be more powerful depending on what we've gotten from our Gurudev. But we understand the meaning of that mantra. We understand the bhav of that mantra. And for that, we want to hear Krishna Katha, not just Krishna Kirtan, but we also want Krishna Katha. Then we understand the bhav of it. Otherwise, if we all sit and chant Hare Krishna, we can be thinking that what is, Krishna is a name for Allah or something, and this is some Islamic thing. You may have so many weird ideas unless there's some Krishna Katha. And then you understand, Krishna is the son of Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, and he's a mama boy. He loves his mother so much, and he's like this and this. And we learn about the qualities of Krishna. Is that okay, Jaguar? All right. Miss your association, but we're thinking about making it back to India. I'm hoping to see you. We'll see what happens. Anyway, it's good you're in New York. I'm I'm so happy. I'm so peaceful thinking about you there. I was really worried about you for a while, Prabhuji. I'm very glad you're in New York and everything is good. You're with the holy name. You can leave your body if you want. You can do whatever you want. You're in the kirtan there. It's good. Radhajeevan Gopal is asking, what's the status of our visa? The status of our visa is very transcendental. Only Krishna knows. Even the Prime Minister of India doesn't know. even the Indian government doesn't know. Nobody knows, and they're not going to give us any word yet. We're just depending on Krishna. It's all we can do. They said there's some progress. They said that we're not on a blacklist, and definitely they're going to give us a visa, but they don't know when. And what we hear, trying to put our, I used to watch these cowboys and Indians movies when I was a boy, and the Indians sometimes they put their ear on the ground, and then they can tell, horses are coming. There's 5 horses and 1 chariot coming. They could tell just by hearing from the ground. So we've been putting our ear on the ground, trying to hear what we can. And what we're hearing from Krishna is that Krishna wants us to go to Ukraine, to be with Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj and Radhanath Maharaj, and then maybe to Czech. I'm not sure about Czech. There's some crazy people there, but maybe go to Czech and then maybe go to Germany after that. We'll see. That's what we're hearing. Hare Krishna. And anybody here in the room want to share anything? Yes, no, maybe. Yashoda Priti? No? Okay. Leela Purushottam Prabhu. Right? Yeah, I heard there's really crazy people in Czech. Yeah, there's some definitely crazy people in Czech, like our friend Leela Purushottam Prabhu.
Actually, I have a question.
Krishna has a question. Maybe Slater ask first.
So sorry, just quick.
If you say really loud, I won't have to repeat it,
Okay.
but you probably won't be able to do it.
You speak about how shelter comes when we understand the heart of Guru. That's a high order.
Guru Maharaj, he told us once, she's quoting me that I said that shelter comes when we understand the heart of Guru. She said, that's a high order. But Guru Maharaj told us once, he said, unless you've seen the Swarup, the Manjari Bhav or the Manjari Swarup or whatever it is of your Guru, you've been cheated. That's a high order, my God. But why even say something like that? Because we should know that's the real thing. And in response to your comment that, you know, unless I know the heart of my Guru, I'm not really, what was it you said?
No shelter.
There's no shelter. But at the same time, I know the heart of my Guru. The heart of my Guru is the holy name. Heart of my Guru is Krishna Katha. So I have some shelter there. But do I really understand the heart of my Guru? I've looked at the outside of it. I've seen the outside door, and the outside door says the holy name, says Krishna Katha, but I haven't seen the inside of that heart. So there's different degrees. Even you just see the outside door of the heart, then that's also some shelter. But you can't compare the person who has that shelter to the person who has shelter inside the heart. You can understand the heart of the Guru. His shelter is much, much deeper. Would you agree with that, Lila Purushottam Prabhu? Any comments, reflections, anything?
That's amazing answer. Although it doesn't release relieve us from the scarcity of how big task we've got to really get it. But it's wonderful answer with nice example of the room actually as the Gurudev's heart. Oh, Krishna. Yeah, there were a few things that I really liked. I liked that as you mentioned on the beginning, that the Shraddha and Sharanagati are like synonyms. It's very deep contemplation actually, if we wanna like see what's in that statement. So I like that. And yeah, then there was nice also this, when we do sadhana with the consciousness of being a servant, then it is bhakti. It was also very powerful. And I had this exactly same question as Ishwari Prema Mataji. Like, what if we can hear this distinction between the different levels of ananda, and that ananda might become actually our goal, our objective, the ananda, not the seva. And if we understand, okay, Sevananda is the highest form of bliss, then I want that because I am the whatever selfish bliss hunter, if I say it blunt. So I had exactly the same question, like what if we do seva for Sevananda and not for Krishna's pleasure? And I was thinking, like, one thing that my mind went to was this beginning part of 29th chapter of 3rd canto, where there's the bhakti in the modes, and then after that 11-12, which describes the transcendental devotion, then the 13th verse says that pure devotee doesn't accept any liberation if there is no seva, like
Vinamat sevanam jana.
Yeah, vinamat sevanam jana, exactly. Like without the opportunity to serve. So I was thinking that would be a nice like attitude stimulation for that dilemma. If we find ourselves in that, then we can judge according to this statement. Like are we willing to accept that pleasure without really serving, or without without being sure that the Lord is pleased? And then I was thinking of a good example, actually, that it might be quite similar for like the frame of understanding, like with the prasadam, that when we take prasadam, we definitely can we definitely can how to say, relish the taste of prasadam, but still it's not a motivation to honor the prasadam. It's like
for about 5 minutes. I have to use the bathroom real quick. And Krishna couldn't have a discussion. I want to hear what your reflection is about what you say, and I have some thoughts also.
Krishna, I'm sorry, Mataji.
Yeah, I'm sorry
I can see and feel your feelings. Yeah, that was my thoughts with the prasadam, that we also have to at one point understand the taste of the prasadam. Although I perceive the taste and I can relish it, I can perceive that it's nice prasadam, it tastes good, it gives some pleasure to my senses. Still, it's not the motivation to honor the prasad. The motivation is to honor the prasad, not to. So in the same way, we could think about, we want to do seva, and the byproduct of that will be Sevananda, but that's not our drive to do the seva. We may be at least on the level of intelligence, we may be aware that it's like a byproduct. It's when we do seva, then the foremost intention for us being Krishna's pleasure, and we know that as a byproduct we get Sevananda. We will perceive like Ananda, bliss. I would really love to hear Krishna Mataji. What's her thoughts on it? But anyway.
Do you have any thoughts on it, Krishna? No. You don't want to comment right now. Okay. It reminded me of a statement in Chaitanya Bhagavat, where Vrindavan Das Thakur says that the nature of the Bhagavatam is, if someone says, I know the Bhagavat, means they don't know the Bhagavat. So similarly, if someone is going after Sevananda, that I want that Ananda, then they don't know Sevananda. Because those persons who really have Sevananda, they're not doing it for their own pleasure, their own motivation. Their whole motivation is just to please Guru and Krishna. That's all. It's
conditioned by selflessness.
Yeah. It's a paradoxical, amazing thing.
Yeah. That's wonderful, actually. Yeah. It's yeah. Thank you so much.
Krishna,
any from Mataji?
You gave her a hard time, Leela Purushottam. You scared her, I think. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so I think that's everything. And I'm not sure what's happening next week. We'll be in touch. Next week we're going to be. I'll be at the festival, so probably we won't have a session, but it's not 100% sure. I don't know. We'll see. But the festival last year was really crazy. I weren't able to do much.
We had a session last year.
We had, yeah, it's a fact. We did have a session last year, so maybe we'll do the same this year too. They asked me, Radha Jivan Gopal, some of the coward devotees here, they asked me to give a special talk to the devotees to encourage them in cow seva and self-sufficiency and some things. We've been talking to some of the devotees about that here. I said, man, I'm not the guy, but I have some interest in it. But we'll just say some things about Krishna and the cows, not about farming or whatever like that. That's something for Leela Purushottam Prabhu. All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop here then. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vansha Kopa Darubhascha, Kripa Sindhu Bheva Chaparita Nam Pavani Bhavakshna Bhebhyonam.